When she's around Conrad, I think she tends to like freeze up a little bit. And when she's around Jeremiah, it's more of this playful energy where they have this comfortability where they can touch each other a lot because that's what their friendship is, and that feels like Jeremiah's love language. But with Conrad, there's a lot of like eye contact, and she is pretty physically expressive. Hi, I'm Lola Tung, and this is how I became Belly Conklin in The Summer I Turned Pretty. The audition process for Belly was I started auditioning in February of 2021. I was away in Pittsburgh at college, just did a self-tape with my roommates in our apartment and sent it in. And then from there, I did a bunch of chemistry reads on Zoom. Everything was on Zoom. It was 2021, very early 2021. The 2 scenes I did for the audition, one was the first scene with Belly and Taylor, where they're like in Belly's room talking about how Belly's leaving for the summer and what her plans are. And then the second scene that I did was the scene on the beach with Conrad in the first episode, where I run away and I say, "To see about a whale."
Wait, where are you going?
To see about a whale.
And I thought that line was very funny and very cute. When I found out, it was super surreal. You kind of just go, is this a prank call right now? You know, they were obviously like, don't tell anyone. And I was very much like, I can't even tell my grandma. And my sweet grandma was like looking for summer jobs for me and sending me clippings from the New York Times of like summer jobs and stuff, being like, you need to start looking into this. When I found out I got it, I immediately read the books, and I felt like that was obviously most important step 1. We made the playlists. Obviously, music was a huge thing, for me at least. It helps me just, you know, get into a scene. First season, I did a lot of journaling. I like wrote letters to each of the characters from Belly's perspective at certain points in the story. We read as many scripts as we had, and obviously like did all my drama school script work of, you know, annotating and objectives. And I think it was just keeping the spirit of the book alive and being my own version of Belly, but also not feeling like we were trying to stray from the books completely and do something completely different, because the books are, you know, that's the original material. And Jenny Han, who's the creator of the show and the writer of the books, she's obviously watched us now for 3 years or whatever and knows the way that we speak, and would, when they were writing, you know, add in the way that we speak to the characters, which I think is really cool and interesting. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah. When she was younger, I mean, especially you can see it with like the scenes where we're playing like 11 or 12 with my little braces and stuff. I think she, and I was like this too, is a little more awkward, but also like very physically expressive, just a little goofier. And even like when she gets angry, I think like that scene at the bonfire on the beach, it's bigger and lots of, you feel the frustration and the anger, and that comes out a lot, I think, in the Physicality.
I'm you're embarrassing. Quit embarrassing yourself. Are you kidding me? Are you okay? Belly?
I think it's just like natural instincts a lot of the time, but I do think she is pretty physically expressive. And I think it actually varies more scene to scene than like year to year, because when she's around Conrad, I think she tends to like freeze up a little bit. And when she's around Jeremiah, it's more of this playful energy where they have this comfortability where they can touch each other a lot, because that's what their friendship is, and that feels like Jeremiah's love language and maybe her love language with him. But with Conrad, there's a lot of like eye contact, and yeah, I think it's very much scene to scene, and depending on what her relationships are like with each other character in that moment. I think my voice was pretty much the same most of the time, again, except when we were like baby playing the really young versions of ourselves. I tried to pitch it up a little bit.
It's okay. It's fine. Let's try again. Come on. Okay. Yeah. My hand's kind of sweaty. It's okay. Mine too.
We actually had a whole conversation about that, because I think it can very easily go into like baby voice. And we were like, okay, they're not babies. So it could be like a little higher, but you don't want to get too like goo goo gaga with it. I also had swimming lessons first season. I can swim pretty well, but you know, it was like had to do some flip turns and stuff, and they're far from perfect, but I had a little swim lesson before I started. The hardest part, and also most rewarding part of of Belly that I feel like I have down now is sort of going back to that physicality, and when she's angry and confrontational, like her ability to just be like, what's going on? She'll just go up and say, what's going on? Why is this not happening? Why is this happening?
I should have known you'd be like this.
What do you mean?
Forget it.
No, say it. Tell me.
I don't like confrontation personally, and I tend to not take risks like that. And I think it was cool just getting to do that and play that a couple times and maybe learn from that as a person. I think I'm just very emotional. I cry all the time. No shame about it. I'm a Cancer moon. Lots of water in the chart. No, but I cry a lot, and I take pride in it now. I think it's like embarrassing, or feels embarrassing, when you're, in high school and you say the wrong answer in class and you're like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But in reality, like, I'm very grateful that I'm able to feel emotions at such an intense level, I guess. 'Cause like, I'll cry if I see a sunset, I literally finished my run in Hadestown on Broadway on a Sunday at like 6 p.m. and then woke up the next morning at like 5 a.m., got on a flight, and went down to Wilmington to film. Some days you'll be called at 6 a.m. and, work till 6 p.m. or, if you're in hair and makeup, usually 2 hours earlier. And then some nights you have night shoots, so you're called at 5 p.m. and then you work until 5 a.m. So it's like different every single day, which is kind of fun and exciting. Not fun for your sleep schedule, but fun and exciting for life experience. It can take like half a day to film a big scene. I have no sense of routine, I feel like, when we're filming. A cup of coffee, trying to hydrate and drink water. I try to see the sun a little bit if we're doing night shoots, get outside. I haven't found the perfect routine yet, but I'm looking. If anyone has tips, let me know. Belly's in college in season 3, so there's a little time jump. I was playing my own age, which was really, really cool. She's with Jeremiah. She's living her life and enjoying being away from home, but still having her friends around her and having her boyfriend around her. Yeah, she's having a good time. On the same sort of note as, I cry all the time, I also laugh all the time because they're very close. There was a scene that we were filming. I'm sure it will be talked about this season. That was not funny for any reason. I think Chris said a line and then made a joke about the line. That was like the stupidest joke ever. We couldn't stop laughing. I think I laughed for 10 minutes straight, just tears streaming down my face, and I felt so bad because you're like wasting everybody's time, but I can't control what's happening right now. But I think it was like late at night, so I was probably a little delirious. I mean, I think the fun thing about TV too and about film is that you get to do so many different takes and try different scenes in completely different ways. And I love that feeling of like going into a scene and sometimes you read it so much and you like overanalyze it and you're sort of stuck a little, and then when you get a note from the director, that makes you see it a completely different way and it feels so fresh and new. And I mean, season 2, the scene on the beach with Chris, who plays Conrad, I was very proud of myself because Belly's a little drunk in that moment. And sometimes when I do a scene like that, I feel physicality can be hard for me, and I feel a little like I'm stopping myself from fully going to a certain place. But because she had this added layer of like, she's drunk and whatever, it allowed me to sort of loosen up a little bit and feel and be present. And, Chris is so great.
I would have been there for you through everything.
I thought you knew. From the moment we kissed on the beach, I thought you knew.
Why? Why did you throw it all away?
And then also that same night we did the invisible string sequence from episode 2, which is so crazy that happened in the same night. But I'm very proud of that scene, and I'm happy that people enjoyed it and quote it quite often. I mean, costuming and makeup and all of it is such a huge part of storytelling. And as the seasons went on, we did get to have a little bit of input. I think when she's younger and spending a lot of time at the beach and in the beach house, you know, she's in her big t-shirts and in her comfortable clothing, and she's always in a bathing suit because she loves to swim, which is awesome. And coming from New York and being far away from the beaches was a whole new experience for me. But I've grown to love the beach. Yeah, it was really interesting to see the evolution and to see how like Taylor influences the way that Belly dresses, and to see how Susanna influences the way that Belly dresses. And in that party scene, that was a huge moment because they're supposed to have sort of retro outfits on, and that was really fun to see those colors on everybody. And there are some moments, I think, like no matter what year, like the Deb Ball was a huge moment, and that's supposed to feel like a stepping up moment for Belly and a moment of growth. So it is nice that it feels very grand and like very different from everything else she's been wearing. But I was very excited about season 3's wardrobe. Again, don't know how much I can say, but even in the teaser, I think you see there's a slight preppiness, a sort of classic simplicity, and a more elevated shoe occasionally because she loves her flip-flops. But there were a couple things I loved. And there was one outfit, it's very simple, that like reminded me of like my mom. I just remember I sent it to her and I was like, this is just in the best way. My mom is very cool and she's very cool style. So I wanted to keep that little outfit. Just like a slightly longer denim short, a little bit of a 90s vibe, which I loved. And like a flowy shirt. Don't overthink everything. That's just a life lesson, I guess, in general with this whole journey that, you know, started in 2021. But like when you're filming and you film a scene and you leave being like, I don't know if we got it and I don't know how I feel, but just at a certain point, you have to just let go and like trust that you did the work. And I think with everything, like even with with interviews and stuff, I constantly overthink everything I say. And at a certain point, you just have to trust that you are smart enough and like doing a good job and that the people around you are supporting you. And I've got some really incredible people in my life that I'm very grateful for. And many of them have come from that show too. So I'm overthinking this answer. When something needs to be talked about or needs to be said or needs to be communicated, especially in relationships and in friendships, say it. It's important to communicate with the people you love. And to be honest, it will help you avoid far worse issues in the future. Thanks, Billy.